It was a record-breaking league and cup double for Manchester United last season. Now their target was a fourth Premier League title in 5 years. Could anyone stop United carrying off the silverware again? Newcastle United splashed out £15 million to bring the title to Tyneside. Alan Shearer came home to the club he supported as a boy as the world's most expensive player. The rest continued to buy big, with foreign imports the most popular commodity. They were paying the price to prize the honours away from Old Trafford. How would the new boys fare? Sunderland, Derby County and Leicester City took their places among the elites. Coming up over the next hour, all the highs and lows in the full compelling story of the English Premier League season 1996-97. We'll look back at the major talking points, and there were plenty, as some waved goodbye and others said hello. Hold on tight.
And I am delighted, absolutely thrilled and delighted to say today, Kevin, to the board, thank you in a sense for bringing Alan here. And it's my great pleasure now to welcome Alan Shearer to Newcastle United Football Club.
When Alan Shearer chose Newcastle United instead of Manchester United, many on Tyneside believed the Premier League trophy would soon follow. For £15 million, Newcastle had acquired Euro 96's leading goalscorer and England's undoubted #1 striker. But could Shearer alone turn Newcastle's disappointment of last season into their first title for nearly 70 years?
I've always said I wanted to play for Newcastle at some stage, and I think if I went elsewhere, I would have had the best years of my career behind me, and I want to play for Newcastle with the best years in front of me.
But Shearer was just part of a £120 million spree paid out on some of the very best. The season began in traditional fashion at Wembley. The Charity Shield was Alan Shearer's first competitive appearance in a Newcastle shirt. Ironically, against the team he could have joined, Manchester United. On the day, though, Shearer was outshone by a dazzling team performance from the champions. Eric Cantona set United on their way to a 4-0 victory. And would it be a sign of things to come? Already another trophy for United, and now the serious business was about to start. August began with the end for Bruce Rioch. Arsenal sacked their manager. It was exit Dalglish from Blackburn Rovers. Sasa Churchic joined Aston Villa. Leicester signed Spencer Pryor and Casey Keller. Orlando Trustfall went to Wednesday. Ron Atkinson and Graham Souness were in hot water with the FA. Gary Mabbott was out for the season, and that man Shearer helped Hoddle to his first England success. Manchester United began the defence of their crown in South London against Wimbledon. So often a graveyard for the top sides, but on a sunny afternoon at Selhurst Park, Alex Ferguson's team just carried on where they'd left off at Wembley.
But one or two options to the left. Cantona!
United were into their stride. Dennis Irwin made it 2-0. And then the young player of the season announced himself on the big stage.
Take a bow, David Beckham. A goal you'll see over and over again. From inside his own half, was it? Certainly on the halfway line.
Alan Shearer's Premier League debut for Newcastle came on the opening day at Everton. No fairy tale for Shearer. Everton's new signing Gary Speed scored their second goal in a 2-0 win. It was probably Everton's best result of the season. On Teesside, £7 million man Fabrizio Ravanelli had joined Brian Robson's Foreign Legion. In his first game against Liverpool, he didn't disappoint.
So Fabrizio Ravanelli has this opportunity now to score on his debut.
John Barnes was the only member of the current team who'd played in Liverpool's last championship-winning side. Now great things were predicted, but for Arsenal the season had begun in turmoil. Stuart Houston had taken temporary charge after Bruce Rioch was dismissed before a ball was even kicked. It seemed he was just killing time until the arrival of Frenchman Arsène Wenger, a highly thought-of coach with a continental approach. But Houston had to tackle Arsenal's next challenge away at Liverpool.
Barnes, better ball in this time. McManaman and a deflection and in. McManaman. Oh, that's beautiful again. Barnes, stopped by Seaman and back in by McManaman. He's got two, Liverpool have two, and Arsenal look buried.
Quite frankly, if you speak to too many people too much, then sometimes you say things you don't really want to say. I would like to say nothing at the moment and just get on with things and see how well we can do.
No predictions, but Wednesday's perfect start won David Pleat the first Manager of the Month award. September began with a move to Middlesbrough for Mikkel Beck. Tottenham keeper Erik Torstved retired. Ruud Gullit was voted Britain's best-dressed man. Peter Reid wasn't best pleased with referee Paul Danson. It was over and out for Forest Steve Stone, sidelined for the season. Graham Souness made an emotional return to Anfield. Paul Merson was back for England after his personal trauma, but Tony Adams said he was fighting alcoholism. Arsenal were KO'd in Europe, along with an embarrassed Aston Villa. Accompanied by their own backing group, Sheffield Wednesday made it 4 out of 4, beating promoted Leicester City. Richie Humphreys produced another moment of sheer magic. Wednesday were top, and next for them Ruud Gullit's Chelsea team, who'd also made a promising start. It was first against second at Hillsborough.
It's Burley with another opportunity, which he's made for himself this time. Can he take this one? He does. That's good work from Burley. Oh, and Myers is in the clear. Andy Myers can wrap it up for Chelsea.
Wednesday's bubble had burst and they would never again reach such heights. But Chelsea were looking strong. Meanwhile, the champions were facing their first major test of the season. Alex Ferguson took his team across the Pennines to Leeds United.
As Poborski looks to pick them out, and Jansson's header is knocked off the line and back in. Yes, it's a goal. And a good tackle there by Neville to win it back, and Poborski goes forward and finds Nicky Butt in space. It's 2-0 to Manchester United. Cantona, and he slides it in for Poborski. Can Poborski finish it here? No problem. Neville, Solskjaer outside him, lucky to get it back for a second opportunity with a cross, and Cantona finishes it off in style.
A 4-0 thrashing for Leeds was all too much for the club's new owners. Howard Wilkinson's reign was terminated. It was the end of an era, but it wasn't easy to take for the departing manager.
I've been sacked. I don't think the recent years have been a failure. Those are your words. I've been sacked for reasons which they see as sound. That is their right, and hopefully the future will prove them right.
The man chosen to replace him was George Graham, back after a 1-year ban for financial misconduct. Graham's job was to revive the club, which had underachieved since winning the title in 1992. At Graham's old club, Arsenal, the turmoil off the field was continuing. The Gunners were awaiting the arrival of Arsene Wenger when Stuart Houston left to take charge of First Division Queen's Park Rangers. More revelations followed, as Tony Adams admitted an addiction to alcohol, close on the heels of Paul Merson's drug and gambling problems. On the field, though, the players seemed unaffected, particularly the effervescent master goalscorer Ian Wright. He was closing in on the club all-time scoring record, and he reached one landmark against Sheffield Wednesday.
Wright against Pressman. You can guess the rest. Dixon's cross is a good one. Bits and pieces. Dispatched by Ian Wright. Merson. Nigel Winterburn, will he shoot himself? Ian Wright wraps it all up with a piece of history and another hat-trick in what is a superb career.
That made it the Arsenal post-war scoring record for Wright. He would also be the club's leading marksman for the season. On Tyneside, the £15 million man was preparing to meet some old friends. For Alan Shearer, there was no room for sentiment against his old club, Blackburn Rovers.
Newcastle are paying my wages, and I've got to do the job to my best of my ability for them. And if it means us taking 3 points, then great.
Blackburn came to St James's Park still looking for their first win of the season. And when Shearer was presented with his first opportunity, he was true to his word.
Batty. Ferdinand. And a handball by Hendry. Penalty is given. And so, the stage is set for Alan Shearer. Against Blackburn Rovers. Against Tim Flowers. A goal for Shearer. Shearer. And the touch was from Ferdinand. Sutton. It's a good try, and Blackburn have got a goal. And Chris Sutton has supplied it 5 minutes to go.
Making a name for himself at Anfield was Czech Republic star Patrick Berger. His introduction gave Liverpool new impetus. 2 goals against Leicester were followed by another impressive display against Chelsea.
Burnaby, and a great chance, and Fowler has taken this one. That's broken up well by Matteo. Berger, he's allowed to go on. There should be 2 for Liverpool. Patrick Berger. Burnaby. Oh, it's 3-0. A terrible own goal from Andy Myers. Chelsea caught in possession. Berger's in for another one. Deep cross from McAteer, just too high for Fowler. Barnes trying to get to it. Good try. It's another deflection. Another lucky break for Liverpool. Well, Frank Leboeuf, who's scored once from the spot already at Arsenal, and 3 times in all in his short time in England. Oh, just gets it beyond David James's dive.
Yeah, I'm happy in England and I like Liverpool.
At Manchester United, another foreign star was beginning to make an impact. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was plucked from near obscurity in the Norwegian second division by Alex Ferguson. Injuries to key strikers forced Ferguson to play him, and he didn't regret it. Solskjaer would earn the nickname the baby-faced assassin.
Solskjaer in space, if he can put it away, he does!
Cruyff thinks about the shot, thought Cantona was the better option, but oh, this is lovely stuff, and Solskjaer again. 2-0, and that may end the argument.
2 months into the season, Liverpool were leading the way by 2 points from Newcastle. Then came Arsenal and Manchester United, familiar names that would dominate the top positions. October saw the arrival of Egil Ostenstad and A.L. Berkovic at Southampton, along with Ulrich van Hobbel. Mark Bosnich upset Tottenham, but made up with Alan Shearer. George Graham came back to Highbury. Benito Carboni enrolled at Wednesday. But Branco signed off at Middlesbrough. Vinnie Jones kicked off his own TV chat show. And Manchester United went in for haute cuisine. Early October and an early morning kick-off for the first heavyweight match of the season. Manchester United and Liverpool arrived at Old Trafford as the only unbeaten sides in the Premier League. It was clear something had to give.
Solskjaer's onside here. Oh, and he brings it down superbly. That really was a great take. And here is Beckham with the goal. It's another for the collection for David Beckham.
A week later and another huge game for the champions. Manchester United's victory at Newcastle last season had swung the title race in their favour. Now Kevin Keegan's team wanted revenge. They got it thanks to their most outstanding performance of the season.
Ginola coming in field again. Here he is.
Oh, brilliant effort! What a goal by David Ginola!
Shearer keeps possession. Newcastle takes on Owen and gets round the outside. Great ball, 39. Oh, yes! Brilliant!
Just a bad day at the office for United? Well, worse was to follow in their next game away at Southampton. The champions' defence was bit shit too, while United's championship crown seemed to be slipping. And so Graham's...
It means a lot. My best friend in Norway loves Man United, so I must call him now after the game. That's the most important thing.
Under the passionate Martin O'Neill, promoted Leicester City were holding their own. Newcastle United were their next visitors, just days after United had thrashed the champions. But Newcastle were missing the injured Alan Shearer.
Grayson gets it back. It's good play from Leicester this. Grayson across. Oh, and it's in. Steve Claridge. Is it? Heskey, no flag. It's Heskey, the 18-year-old. He's round the goalkeeper. And Leicester City lead by 2-0.
Those expected to do well kept tripping up. But one of these success stories was undoubtedly Wimbledon. Joe Kinnear for once was able to hang on to his best players. Perhaps even pre-season advice from a familiar face helped Wimbledon to their best season in their 10th year in the top flight. After losing their first 3 games, Wimbledon embarked on a 19-game unbeaten run. All this when rumours were rife about a possible move to Dublin. The Dons made it to 2 cup semi-finals and only just failed to qualify for Europe. Their owner, Sam Hammam, had every right to be a proud man. Chelsea were rocked by the tragic and untimely death of Vice-Chairman Matthew Harding, the man behind the club's recent renaissance. He was involved in a very public feud with Chairman Ken Bates, but the battle for control of the club was resolved amicably. Harding's death was a huge loss. He would be remembered as a dedicated, genuine Chelsea fan.
Yeah, he was a guy that he wanted to be a player also. He wanted to be one of us, and was more like a supporter, you know, than really a director.
A diminishing force since winning the title were Blackburn Rovers. A winless start to the season finally forced Ray Harford to resign. Blackburn were bottom of the table and struggling to come to terms with life after Shearer. A much happier manager was George Graham, who returned to Highbury for the first time since his ban. It wasn't a happy day for Graham. His side were comprehensively beaten 3-0. Goals from Bergkamp, Dixon and Ian Wright highlighted the gulf in class, with Arsenal now firmly under the influence of their Frenchman Arsène Wenger. Arsenal ended the month top, ahead of Newcastle on goal difference. Liverpool were firmly among the challengers, along with Wimbledon. The champions, it seemed, had Europe on their minds.
This programme is sponsored by Bet365.
In November, Zola arrived at Chelsea. Peter Beardsley celebrated 200 up with his biggest fan. Terry Venables headed down under to coach Australia. Emerson left, came back, left again, and then decided to stay. Nick Barmby did leave Borough for Everton. Ron Atkinson moved upstairs at Coventry. Gordon Strachan took over. Manchester United lost at home in Europe for the first time in 40 years. But Liverpool made it to the Cup Winners' Cup quarter-finals. In the league, Manchester United needed an upturn in their fortunes. Chelsea arrived at Old Trafford having lost only twice in 21 visits, and there was to be further agony for the title favourites.
Dubry. Oh. Bialy's got in behind here. Against Schmeichel, past Schmeichel, 2-0 to Chelsea. Hitchcock hesitated, then got there. Poborski to smash it back. Well, there is a touch of luck.
Still not enough, though, to save United from another defeat. And certainly not the way Alex Ferguson expected to celebrate 10 years at Old Trafford. His next game couldn't have been tougher, at home to Arsenal, who were unbeaten under their new coach Arsene Wenger. And Arsenal were definitely ready for the challenge.
Giggs, lovely touch, but Butt lets it run on for Solskjaer. Oh, and Seaman has made a hash of it. And Manchester United get a goal. It goes in off Winterburn. What a gift.
Welcome relief for United, but their win was soured when Peter Schmeichel and Ian Rice began a feud that would rumble on throughout the season and eventually flare up again. Meanwhile, at Ewood Park, caretaker manager Tony Parks was trying to save Blackburn's season. Finally, they enjoyed their first league win, denting Liverpool's title search. Chris Sutton grabbing 2 goals in Blackburn's 3-0 win. There was another new arrival for Chelsea fans to enthuse over. Ruud Gullit's capture of Gianfranco Zola was surely the buy of the season. Zola would make an immediate impact. Just 5 months later, he'd be named Footballer of the Year. Newcastle had been missing Alan Shearer, now back after a groin operation. They would need him at his best when Arsenal came to St James's as first met second.
And Ian Wright is springing away. Left of centre, he's held off Peacock. Oh, what a goal from Lee Dixon. For Ginola. Oh, Shearer's free. And he doesn't miss from there. He might be in again here. And Graham Barber has to decide what and where and why. It's definitely outside the penalty area. Oh, it is punishment. Graham Barber's thought about it and Tony Adams is sent off. Help arriving in the shape of Merson. Russell can't believe it.
So a terrific win for the 10 men of Arsenal, and they ended the month on top, 2 points clear of Newcastle. Liverpool and Wimbledon were still there, but Manchester United hadn't closed the gap. In December, time had run out for Frank Clark at Forest. Sven-Goran Eriksson told Blackburn he'd be coming in the summer. Middlesbrough failed to turn up at Blackburn. Newcastle drew a blank for the first time in 73 matches. Liverpool's John Scales arrived at Spurs. And Norwegian Stefan Iversen said yes to North London. Gunnar Halle was back in the Premier League with Leeds. West Ham's Paulo Futre retired through injury. Manchester United reached the quarter-finals of the Champions League. And Newcastle made the last ace of the UEFA Cup. Arsene Wenger couldn't really have dreamed his side would be top of the table at the halfway point. In the next game, Derby were ahead into the last minute when Patrick Vieira, who had such a commanding season, rescued a point. Manchester United were still looking shaky. At West Ham, they threw away a 2-goal lead. Florin Raducioiu And then a Julian Dix penalty earned a valuable point for West Ham. Harry Redknapp's team would again find the season tough going, but again they would beat the drop. Robbie Fowler was starting to hit form. Against Middlesbrough, he was looking for his 100th Liverpool goal.
Collymore, given the opportunity today by Patrick Berger's illness and starting as though he's a man. Middlesbrough suddenly given a chance to get back into it, but Mustoe gives the ball away. And that might be curtains, because Robbie Fowler has raced in for the hat-trick. Collymore.
Jobs are good.
But out of a job was Nottingham Forest manager Frank Clark. He resigned after Forest had failed to win a game since the opening day of the season. Kevin Campbell's hat-trick at Coventry proved a false dawn. Clark clearly believed he'd gone as far as he could.
It gets sometimes to the point where you wonder whether they're going to keep listening to you. And I wanted to make the change before that happened, because that would have been disastrous for myself, for the club as well.
Long-time captain Stuart Pearce was the man chosen to succeed Clark, at least in the short term. He took on the caretaker manager's role until the end of the season. His first job, to beat title-chasing Arsenal.
Merson back to Winterburn to bend it in first time. Should be the goalkeeper's ball. Oh, he's dropped it. And Ian Wright puts Arsenal into the lead. Saunders. And an equaliser from Haaland. And now Wright has just gone across to Jurkan. And the next thing, Jurkan was on the ground and Steve Lodge didn't see it. And Ian Wright is sent off. Pearce looking for a fairy tale finish to his first game at the helm. But crossing it in towards Campbell. Haaland might provide the fairy tale.
For Pearce, the fairy tale didn't last long. Forest would lose their Premier League status. They were in trouble again at Coventry City. Darren Huckerby, a £1 million investment from Newcastle United, helped Coventry, though, to 3 straight wins over Christmas and New Year, scoring against his former club in a 2-1 win. Further goals at Leeds and against Middlesbrough gave Coventry hope of keeping their top-flight status of 31 years. Down at Chelsea, they were seeking inspiration from new courses. Marco van Basten trained at the club for a few days and couldn't have failed to have been impressed with Gianfranco Zola. Named Player of the Month for December, Zola's talents kept Chelsea in with an outside chance of the title and helped them reach the FA Cup final. In the league, though, Manchester were up to second place, but they would have to catch Liverpool, who at the end of the year had opened up a 5-point lead. Arsenal, Wimbledon and Newcastle all still had title aspirations. Down at the bottom, there were some familiar clubs struggling. It was the month King Kev said goodbye to Tyneside. His successor, Kenny Dalglish. Spurs spending continued on Ramon Vega. Festa joined the Foreign Legion at Borough. Anders Limpar waved goodbye to Everton. Ice-cool Dennis Bergkamp saw red. Wilkinson made a stumbling start at the FA. David Seaman became an MBE. And Peter Shilton played match number 1000.
Newcastle United Football Club today announced the resignation of manager Kevin Keegan. Kevin informed the board of his wish to resign at the end of the season, having decided he no longer wishes to continue in football management at this stage in his life.
It was the end of a passionate love affair. Kevin Keegan only really wanted to manage one club, but by early January, he'd had enough.
You woke up this morning to see, maybe you hadn't seen some of these headlines.
I'm here to talk about the game. You know the guy who wrote that. End of story.
At Charlton, Keegan refused to discuss rumours that he'd offered his resignation, but 3 days later, he'd quit.
He thinks he's come as far as he can go, and that's it.
I don't think there's anybody who'll be accepted as much as Keegan was in this club. You know, people don't want to underestimate exactly what he's done for this club.
Keegan's reign lasted nearly 5 years. It was an emotional ride, that transformed Newcastle United.
I'll tell you, honestly, I will love it if we beat them. Love it.
I'd like to win something. That is my immediate aim, because I don't remember as a manager who never won anything.
The man chosen to take on Keegan's mantle was Kenny Dalglish. As a player, he'd taken over from Keegan at Liverpool. A proven winner as a manager, many believed Dalglish could now turn Newcastle into champions. His first Premier League game in charge was at the Dell against his old Liverpool pal Graham Souness. Newcastle would continue to slip up even under Dalglish. The other challengers to Manchester United's crown were following suit. It was turning into a title race of missed chances. Roberto Di Matteo's goal defeated Liverpool, while a Tony Adams' own goal proved Arsenal's downfall at Sunderland. Meanwhile, Middlesbrough's season turned upside down. Brian Robson arrived at the FA to hear his side's punishment for their failure to play a match at Blackburn.
The panel has concluded that Middlesbrough Football Club did not have just cause for unilaterally calling off the match, and that as a result they will face the following penalty. 1. They will have 3 points deducted with immediate effect.
Middlesbrough always maintained they could not field a side due to illness and injury, and that they had consulted with the league. The FA punishment, though, meant Middlesbrough finished the month bottom. The 3-point penalty would prove a real handicap in their battle to stay up. At the top, Liverpool's lead had been cut to 2 points, and the champions had a game in hand. Arsenal and Newcastle were third and fourth. Sven-Goran Eriksson said sorry to Blackburn. Inter Milan's Roy Hodgson said yes please. Forest finally had new owners. Dave Bassett came in as general manager. Keeper Mark Schwarzer went to the Borough. West Ham splashed out $8 million on John Hartson and Paul Kitson. Andrei Kanchelskis left Everton for Italy. Wright and Schmeichel continued to square up. Chelsea opened their own radio station. Alan Shearer was opened up again in a third operation. And England lost in the World Cup to Italy. Alex Ferguson had plenty to smile about in February. Without the added pressure of the Champions League for another month, his side went full throttle for the title. Wins over Wimbledon thanks to a rejuvenated Andy Cole, and then Southampton pushed United to the top of the table. So in mid-February, United were where they wanted to be. Newcastle in fourth weren't the force everyone expected, but when fit, they had Alan Shearer. 3-1 down at home to Leicester. Enter the £15 million man.
United lead 4-3 in injury time.
Meanwhile, at Highbury, they staged one of the most awaited matches of the season. For all the leading clubs, Arsenal against Manchester United had massive significance in the race for the title.
Cole going through now. Shots! Andy Cole has steered United in front with 18 minutes gone. Now Cole has got Solskjaer to his left. First touch was good, so was the second. Berson. Far away down the right. Bergkamp here. Dennis Bergkamp! Terrific finish.
It was a severe dent to Arsenal's title hopes. It made Manchester United clear favourites. Their performance was tainted, though, after another unsavoury clash between Ian Wright and Peter Schmeichel. An escalation of their feud, which had started in the league meeting back in November. It took several weeks to cool down. United's win was gained without the suspended Eric Cantona. Still out when United went to Chelsea. After Zola put Chelsea ahead, United were grateful to their rising star.
It's a useful cross. Sinclair, who only dropped to Beckham! Well, every goal he scores is an absolute beauty.
And there was England recognition and the Young Player of the Year award for Beckham, one for the future. David Beckham helped Manchester United maintain their lead, but there was now a gap of 5 points from Liverpool in second to Newcastle and Arsenal. It was looking like a two-horse race. In March, Liverpool and Newcastle were at it again. Robbie Fowler did his bit for old-fashioned sportsmanship. Across Merseyside, Joe Royle called it a day. Leeds United considered calling time on Tony Yeboah. Pierre Van Hooijdonk joined bottom club Forest. Chris Waddle went back home to Sunderland. No verdict in the match-rigging scandal, so Sagers, Fashanu and Grobbelaar will have to do it all again. Manchester United went through in Europe. So did Liverpool. But Newcastle went out, and Middlesbrough lost their appeal against that three-point deduction. Southampton under Graham Souness were in the midst of their familiar struggle at the bottom of the table. They were the next opponents for Newcastle, who had to keep winning to stay in touch.
Now Le Tissier. It's Matt Le Tissier. It's a thrilling finish from him.
The challengers to the champions were slipping up, and a day later at Aston Villa, Liverpool followed suit, unconvincing throughout and eventually punished.
What a chance here, must be! Goal for Ian Taylor, Villa in front.
So with all those around them showing signs of fallibility, could the champions maintain their momentum? Peter Reid's Sunderland, who'd slid into trouble, desperately needed the points when United visited Roker Park. As Liverpool and Newcastle then met a week later at Anfield. Memories of their epic last season were still fresh in the minds. Could it happen again? Yes, it could.
Fowler let it run on to McManaman. Fabulous goal! Through goes Fowler. Off the post, Berger. Liverpool again with Fowler. He's through here. Gillespie lining up a shot. It's there. Asprilla racing through the middle. Is this another one? Yes! Here's Asprilla. Goes back. It's there! Oh. Here's Bjornaby. There's Fowler. Would you believe it?
Across Stanley Park at Everton, things were again not going to plan. A promising start was followed by far too much inconsistency. And after a home defeat by Manchester United and a disagreement over transfer funds, Joe Royle resigned. In his first season, Royle won the FA Cup, but failed to build on it. Goalkeeper Neville Southall summed up the feeling.
I wish he hadn't resigned. From a personal level, I mean, he doesn't pick me all the time, but I mean, I still think he's a great fella, and I still think he's a good manager. And I think, to be fair, given enough time, he would have made Everton one of the greatest forces in Europe.
It was a bad month as well for Middlesbrough. Fans sent protest letters to the FA, but the club's appeal against the three-point deduction was turned down. The consequences would reverberate right to the end of the season, and inevitably Brian Robson was feeling the strain.
No more, okay? No more.
There was more controversy on a cold, wet night at Highbury, when Arsenal badly needed to beat Liverpool to keep their title chances alive.
Square ball, a good shot, surely Collymore now.
Then came the most bizarre incident of the season. Robbie Fowler went down under the challenge of David Seaman. Fowler immediately indicated it wasn't a penalty. Referee Gerald Ashby disagreed and pointed to the spot. But afterwards, Fowler maintained there had been no contact.
He never touched me. I mean, I've sort of knocked the ball away from him, sort of tried to jump over him, and as I've jumped over him, I mean, I've lost my balance and fell. I mean, and from my reaction, I mean, I've got up straight away and went to walk away, but I mean, the refs pointed to the spot, and I mean, I tried to say it wasn't a penalty, but he says he's temporarily deaf on it.
The drama continued when Fowler stepped up to take the penalty. Seaman saved, but McAteer followed in to score a vital goal. Arsenal pulled one back, but realistically, their title hopes had gone. By the end of March, Manchester United had a three-point lead. It seemed the title would be heading to either Old Trafford or Merseyside. Guess who was voted Players' Player of the Year? Outsiders Leicester City carried off the League Cup. Alex Ferguson tried and failed to get the season extended. Dave Watson took caretaker charge at Everton. Chelsea signed rising star Celestine Babayaro. Manchester United went out in Europe. Liverpool were beaten by Paris Saint-Germain. And Bolton Wanderers were the first side promoted to the Premier League. Jim Smith's Derby were the first team to Old Trafford in April, but no one could have predicted the 9th Derby's Premier League status. Surely Liverpool would capitalise against Coventry, but their home form had been so troublesome and it would let them down again. Noel Whelan equalised. Then a misjudgment by David James allowed Dion Dublin to score a last-minute winner. It wasn't the only mistake made by James in the run-in. He claimed playing computer games affected his concentration. Whatever the reason, it was costly. Coventry's win at Liverpool was hugely important for them. And Southampton were turning on their Houdini act as well. Victories at doomed Nottingham Forest and relegation rival Sunderland helped keep Southampton up and won Graham Souness the Manager of the Month award. Back at the top, Manchester United were forgetting all about Derby. They beat Blackburn Rovers 3-2, Eric Cantona scoring their third. Liverpool had to play Everton in the Merseyside derby. A 1-1 draw meant more points dropped, but worse was the dismissal of star striker Robbie Fowler. In a niggling match, Fowler was provoked into retaliating against Everton defender David Unsworth. Both players eventually saw red, and Fowler would be suspended for the last 3 games of the season. But his final match would be the most significant, against Manchester United at Anfield. A win for the champions would surely put them out of reach, but if Liverpool could win, they could seriously think about that first championship in 7 years.
Here comes the Manchester United corner, and a goal by Gary Pallister. Long ball in, and Barnes has scored! Here's Beckham again, and that's Pallister again on the near post, and he's done it again!
The reactions of Alex Ferguson and Roy Evans said it all. Manchester United needed another 5 points from their remaining 4 games to be absolutely certain of the title. Zola was named Footballer of the Year as Chelsea signed Uruguayan Gustavo Poyet. Sunderland said goodbye to Roker Park. And Derby farewell to the baseball ground. Barnsley celebrated promotion to the Premier League. But who would be dropping out? And who would be crowned 96-97 league champions? Manchester United began a run of 4 games in 9 days at Leicester. They were 2 down, but Ole Gunnar Solskjaer struck twice. The title was another point closer. 2 days later, Solskjaer was at it again against Middlesbrough, equalising after United had been 3-1 down.
It's 3-3. It's unbelievable. It's Solskjaer.
It meant Newcastle had to win at West Ham. They drew 0-0. So Liverpool had to beat Wimbledon at Selhurst Park to keep the title race alive. Jason Newell's goal had Liverpool on the back foot. In the second half, Dean Holdsworth added another. And although Liverpool pulled one back, it was not enough. The following morning, United celebrated their 4th title in 5 years. A few days later, Eric Cantona did the official honours, collecting the Premier League trophy. At the other end, Nottingham Forest were the first club to go down. It was a season of turmoil at the City Ground, and at the end, Stuart Pearce stood down as caretaker manager to allow Dave Bassett to take full charge. Middlesbrough, docked 3 points and missing Fabrizio Ravanelli for their final 2 games, couldn't muster the wins to save themselves. Like Manchester United, they played 4 games in 9 days, but not even the brilliant Brazilian Juninho could keep them up. Sunderland's Peter Reid was one manager who didn't splash out on foreign starts. On the final day, a win would have kept Sunderland in the Premier League, but they lost 1-0 at Wimbledon and had to wait on Coventry's result. Coventry had been in England's top flight for 30, and Coventry had escaped to victory again. to the relief and delight of their manager Gordon Strachan. It was Forest, Sunderland and Middlesbrough who went down. Middlesbrough may well appeal against their 3-point deduction again, but it was so tight only 3 points separated Blackburn in 13th and Middlesbrough in 19th. Manchester United ended up 7 points clear at the top, then came their three main rivals all on 68, with Newcastle gaining the runners-up spot ahead of Arsenal and Liverpool, who fell away badly. Aston Villa and Leicester, the League Cup winners, will be in Europe next season. The £15 million man, Alan Shearer, was the league's top scorer. Ian Wright was in lethal mood again. Robbie Fowler hit 18, as did Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, the find of the season. His goals helped keep Manchester United ahead of the rest. Alex Ferguson's side are Premier League champions once again.